Top Lobster Productions.
In the shadows of the ancient ones, they never went away. They're still here today.
Nephilim Death Squad. When the last trumpet sounds and the heavens crack, plop, 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 plop. Nephilim Death Squad. Nephilim Death Squad. Death Squad. Death Squad. Death Squad.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, aka The Raven. That is Top Lobster, the father of disinformation. And Fridays are for the Lord. I know that doesn't matter to you if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on audio, but we have a really important live viewing community that appreciates every time I say that.
That's right.
That means we have Ed Mabrie back. But before we get into that, a little reminder, if you want to support us, patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. Sign up there. Early access to episodes, unedited versions, which is very, very important, especially during these Epstein times.
That's right.
You want the unedited versions, not the redacted files. You want the raw files. Get them on patreon.com/Nephilim Death
Tickets
Squad.
to Bohemian Grove when they drop at some point.
They will drop. We promise.
They'll be
And
here.
Discount codes. Oh, show them the new stuff, dude.
Oh, that's right. Discount codes off toplobster.com. Here we go. Check this out. We got some new
Thanks,
merch. Bang.
Granny Maxing
Granny
shirts
Maxing.
are
I'll show
in.
you a better version of it.
Yeah, let's get a bigger version. I like this. This is good.
This is-
That's so funny.
I don't even design t-shirts anymore. This is out of pure spite. This is in response to our boys.
Blurry Creatures posted, our aliens demon doesn't matter, and it's a cowboy shooting them.
Yeah.
And then we responded with our own campaign that says it matters. Aliens are demons, and it's Grandma Maxing. She's being beset upon by the cowled.
I was drawing with the fury. I saw their crap design. I said, you know what? I'm pulling out all the stops.
I'm so
We're
pumped
doing the
about
drawing,
it.
dog.
Damn demons. You got the Pleiadians, the cowled insectoids, reptilians, the small grays. And if you're Grandma Maxing, then this is the
Show your
the
boys
shirt for
some
you.
love and let Blurry Creatures know that they sent you.
That they ain't shit.
Today we have a great guest. Again, our boy Ed Mabrie is back.
Joining us for the 47th time, it's Ed Mabrie. Ed, before we get into the conversation, I'm very excited what we were talking about pre-show, what we're going to get into. Let's let everybody know where they can find you.
Sure, guys. Thanks for having me back. You can find me on faithbyreason.net. That is my site, my legacy site, where I have a just ton of blogs, podcasts, videos. I actually need to update a couple of the. Actually, I'm on series episode 11 of the Genesis series. I need to update that. There, you can become a member there and get some stuff that's behind the paywall. But there's also free stuff there. So yeah, you can also sign up for the spiritual warfare class. We're going to talk about some spiritual warfare stuff today as it relates to the Epstein files. And there's also my Patreon, separate, a whole separate thing, but a lot of similar information there, but I'm more active there. That's where you can interact with me, ask me questions. You get special bonus episodes. Everything drops there first. You can be part of our Bible study that is kicking off again. We're starting from scratch again in March. So if you came in at the middle or end of it last year and you want to get started again, March is going to be where we're kicking it off again there. And there'll be other special discounts on books, and there'll be a discount on the spiritual warfare class if you sign up there. And just one quick thing I want to let everyone know, because I've been getting a lot of new members. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your support.
That's awesome.
But just know that there's been some confusion. These are separate accounts. The faithbyreason.net versus Patreon, they're not the same. Some people have signed up for one thinking they get both. You don't. They are different. You get Faith by Reason, you get just a ton of like background information, a ton of study material. The Patreon is where you're getting like the newest, most active stuff. So if you want to do deep research, faithbyreason.net. If you want to stay up on the latest, greatest, Patreon.
Awesome.
Excellent. And yeah, go pick up one of his books. We got it in the studio. Maybe just drop by the studio and read it.
Oh yeah, you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to come by the studio. Standard Coffee Shop. We are guamming at you live from there. We got our library in the back. If you come back, we'll let you flip through the book. You can't take it home with you though. It's our book.
All right.
But you can, all right, fine. It's Top's book.
I should send you guys a signed copy.
Oh
like that.
Yes, that would be great. That would be great.
Well, that's one of the perks for one of my Patreon tiers. If you sign up for that, when I send you a signed copy of the book.
Very cool. So before the show, we were talking about the Epstein files. You said that you had watched a bit of the 2 episodes that we released recently on YouTube. If you guys are listening, you haven't seen those, I highly recommend going and checking them out, because the general public hasn't been keen to much of the Epstein files that have been released. The DOJ just released, like, I don't know if it was like 3 million or 3.5 million more files over these past few days. So we're in the thick of it right now. This is kind of the refining process where the sleuths are going to go through everything, find some of this information. It's a little bit of a black pill, and admittedly, it's a bit of a golden apple that we're bonking here. But with that being said, we have waited on bated breath for the Epstein files for how long now? So far be it from us to look past it when it is dropping. So we're doing our best to try to understand it. It's a strange situation. Go check out those other 2 episodes. It'll help you kind of catch up to speed on what we know so far. But it is, you were talking about it, Ed. It's got a heavy spiritual implication. I mean, we are in spiritual warfare. Just because these are documents that are released by the DOJ doesn't mean that there's no spiritual implication. This isn't all just nuts and bolts. And so where do you want to start in this conversation as to, I guess, maybe how to prepare people or what it means to be subjected to this kind of thing?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say that I am absolutely not in these files. You will not find Ed Mabrie's name in the Epstein files. But if you do happen to find them, just know that I was just getting tax advice.
That's it.
That's it.
You know,
He was helping me set up my LLC.
Purposes.
That's the only thing.
Everybody
But I'm
is
not
in
in there. But if I am, that's what was
everybody's in the Epstein files. And I don't know if you've really looked at this thing. It's like everybody. Tony Hawk just had to come out and correct the record because people were going around on some fake tangents about it.
There's a picture of Post Malone and the other guy,
Dan Bilzerian, but that's not even a compromising
it's
photo.
Bizarre because it's like he said, "Wait, this picture's on my Instagram,
yeah,
but the girls are blocked out." So it's just there is a lot in there, and what's consequential and what's not, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the fog of war.
Yeah, there's a guy I actually went to college with in there. He was, yeah, we weren't like friends or anything. We hung out a couple of times, like in circles. But he's actually a well-known agent now in LA. You know, back when I was in school down there. His name is Casey Wasserman. He's actually running the Olympics for 2028 in LA. He's a well-known a guy. Our football complex at my school is named after him. So I just found out he was in there, and like so, one of my friends called me up and said, Casey's in there. I'm like, Casey who? Wasserman. Remember him from school? I'm like, yeah, I remember. He's kind of a dork, nepo baby, but good for him. For getting his inheriting his grandfather's talent agency. But yeah, he's in there. Like apparently he was having sex with Ghislaine, or however you pronounce her name, Maxwell, and they were exchanging some like very provocative texts with each other about stuff. I'm like, everybody's in there. It's crazy.
We were going through it recently with
so you're saying that the 2028 Olympics is hiring?
Apparently, yeah, they just lost the talent coordinator.
Oh no, nothing's gonna happen to him.
So we were looking into the whole Rupert Sheldrake situation. I don't know if you're familiar with Rupert Sheldrake, but he is he's an intellectual. He's I guess an accepted part of the scientific community. He's not been casted out for pseudoscience, despite the fact that his area of expertise is in like psionic abilities, the psychic connection between let's say married couples or individuals and their pets even. And he's got a lot of great work on it. And we actually reached out to have him on the show, but he declined. And I think it's probably because he saw the name of the show and was like, what the hell is this? But he's in those files. And, so it's hard because it's like, well, where do you place that? The thing that seems to be a consistent theme is that Jeffrey Epstein was funding a lot of different work within the scientific community in a really broad sort of shotgun scatter, way. But still, even with Rupert Sheldrake, it's like they were having correspondence from like 2015 to 2018. And this guy's been a convicted pedophile since 2008, Epstein. So if you're associating with Epstein post that, and that's not to say that you're going to do a background check on everybody that you come into contact with, but at some point over the span of 2015 to 2018, when you're dealing with this big of a philanthropist, right, it's got to come up. Somebody's got to have expressed to you like, oh, that guy got wrapped up for banging a 14-year-old, right? And so, it's hard because everybody's in it, and it's hard to discern what level of culpability anybody has in this whole situation.
So a couple of things we can talk about at first in this. And so one is just the from a spiritual standpoint, what's going on with all this incredibly, to call it salacious is an understatement. I mean, just some really thick, depraved stuff. And my wife was asking me, have you ever heard of anything like this? My wife was saying, have you ever heard of anything like this? And I was like, unfortunately, I have. I'm investigating things like, what was going on with MK Ultra and a lot of these women, like Kathy O'Brien and Bryce Taylor, I think is her name, and people like that who, wrote their memoirs or whatever and talked about how they were trafficked as young girls. So I wish I could say I had never heard of stuff like this, but yeah, so just really horrible things with babies and all that. So I want to talk about a little bit about the spiritual aspects of just that ritualistically, sex and children and things like that. And then why is this being dropped? Because when I first heard about this, a week ago, basically, because I never thought they were going to release anything that named names, especially when most of these people who are being named were said, like I was joking before, oh, I'm not in these files, I hate that guy, I hate Epstein. And then all of a sudden there's Elon like begging to be at a party. And then the funniest part was basically him getting the Heisman by Epstein saying, no, we don't want your dorky butt at one of our. So that was hilarious. And then Trump, who swore up and down he wasn't in there. And if these things, again, if this is true,
he's actually come out and addressed it. I don't know if you saw that, Ed. He goes,
he's there 38,000 times.
And he says they're trying to, compromise him or whatever. They're trying to ruin him. And, this is like an effort. So he's actually come out recently. This is very recent, within the past few days, where he's addressing it. I know that the Clintons are set to testify. I don't know when that's going to happen. This thing has actually, you said you were surprised that they were naming names. Yeah, it's gotten all the way to like Stephen A. Smith and Bill Maher, of all people, sitting there talking about, they said, Bill Maher said, quote, he goes, where does QAnon go to get their apology? And
seriously,
we're in really remarkable times. We've not really felt the implications of this wave yet. It just happened. Yeah. There's a lot of catching up that the regular public has to do, but this is going to end up pretty big.
Well, the regular public doesn't know yet. We have like the coffee shop here, which is a great indicator. Mm-hmm. They're not really talking about this.
They're just walking in, ordering brown water, no idea that, people are eating babies. And that's the thing too, is Bill Maher, he goes, QAnon said some crazy things, which I'll admit, right? They said RFK Jr. was he never died. He was going to come back. They said a lot of wonky things, but he just focused on like the big pedophile ring among the elites. And it's like, even that, what we were previously served up was like 16, 17-year-old girls, underage girls, giving him a massage in the Netflix documentary, some crazy crap like that, right? Yeah. We're going, no, it goes beyond that. Right now, the mouthpieces of the mainstream media are going pedophilia ring. And we're going, yeah, but still a bit further, because it's murder and dismemberment and cannibalism and ritual practices and all of that. And so, there's still, like I said.
Yeah. And that's the second part I want to get into, is like, why is this why are we getting this now? And because there's always a rationale behind this. There's always the people at the top made the decision to let this go, because how long have they been asking for the Epstein files? 10 years, give or take. And why now? Yeah. And what does it mean about what's coming next? And because everything they do has a methodology to it to get to their big goals. So that'll be the second part. So the first part, let's talk about some of the ritualistic aspects and of violating children. Because again, like you said, we just thought that it was about underage girls, which is horrible. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. At first we thought they were 16, 17-year-olds girls. And, this is not an excuse at all. But, when I was growing up, I'm obviously older than you guys, but when I was growing up, 16-year-old girls didn't look like 16-year-old girls do today. They didn't dress the same way. They look like adults. So, but that doesn't excuse it. But in our minds, and we're going to get into this when we get into what I'm calling the slow drip towards Armageddon. Like, it would, my cousins, when I was growing up, they could not leave the house dressed like girls are dressed today. So, but now it's been normalized. Oh, that's just how girls dress. They, they're in booty shorts. They've got their stomachs and boobs out. So it's less salacious because, they're 16, 17, but now 13, 14, and now babies. So what's going on here spiritually? And we've talked about this before on the show, that what these people are trying to do is open gateways and allow demonic energy to come into this world, because it empowers them and it empowers their masters, who's the people who are behind them, the entities behind them. And we know who these entities, what is really behind them, because I get asked a lot, being in the conspiracy truth world, who do you think is running the world? Is it Bilderberg Group? Is it the Trilateral Commission? Is it the Illuminati? Is it the Vatican? Like, it doesn't matter because at the very top is our fallen angels, fallen Elohim. That's who's running things. That's the one thing all of these groups have in common. One, they want to subjugate everyone and get power. But the other thing they have in common is that they all worship these entities. So there are at the very top, there are no atheists. Which, by the way, I found it really ironic that the chief atheist, Richard Dawkins, is also in the files.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, this is a lot of the issue that we were facing when we were like still, you had one foot in the political realm, and I was looking at it from the outside, and I was interacting with these people because of the Libertarian Party or what have you. And I was saying, they're constantly trying to pin it on, the furthest they were willing to go is a deep state within the political body and the government. And I'm going like, if you're looking for human beings to point the finger at, you're wrong. But that's an impossible conversation to have with anybody who's wrapped up in the political realm, because you're dealing with the intangible and you're dealing with something that's going to get you laughed out of the room. But it's the truth. Like you're saying, if you're trying to say, is it Trump? Is it the Clintons? It's like these are things that are used at any given time by something that inhabits the spiritual realm, and that puppeteers, or not really puppeteers, maybe in some cases, yes, but mostly nudges here and there. It plays a really long game over thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And in the nature of that long game, it becomes impossible almost to perceive unless you're willing to go to those crazy places.
Ed, you remember, like, I think 2 weeks ago when you asked me, like, why do we think disclosure is so imminent?
Yeah.
And this hadn't released yet, but like all signs were pushing toward, and they were heavy signs before this. Now I don't really see how we go any other direction but that.
I crunched
I want to talk about
numbers
that in the second half. I want to talk about that.
All right.
Just for reference, I asked Grok, which is meaningless at the end of the day, but I said, I'm posing one of three scenarios, or maybe a combination of them, likely to come next. It was the economic collapse, full, elimination of the dollar, war between Iran and Israel, which is interesting because now the American embassy in Iran is telling all Americans to get out of Iran. Mm-hmm. And the other third option was alien disclosure. I said, crunch the numbers, given X, Y, and Z, the climate, political, and social. What are the likelihoods that we'll see this come to pass? It said 65%. Then a couple of days later, the Epstein files dropped. When I re-asked it, it said 85%.
Yeah, it's going to happen. And we're getting prepped for it. And I know you guys believe this, and I'm sure your listeners do. But I want to talk about how that's very likely from the biblical standpoint, looking at the methodology of these entities. So I want to talk about that next. But just not to wrap up, but to continue with these occult practices. So all of these people, and one thing that I think the Epstein files will be showing the quote unquote the normies, people like my wife, who does not who wants to stay away from this. And she was watching the Grammys on Sunday, and we got into an argument because I think I made an offhanded comment like, these people are so fake, because they all come up there to accept their awards. Then like, oh, we have to fight for the little people and blah blah blah. And I kind of made a remark like, you're not oppressed, you're just virtue signaling.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's all they do. And she got kind of upset with me because you don't know, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I do, but it's fine. And so, like, you're still a normie, bless your heart. But what it is showing,
real quick, are you a difficult guy for your wife to watch shows with because that's what you do?
Yes.
Me too, dude. Me too. My wife can't stand it. I'm just constantly like, these people are terrible people. This is all fabricated. None of this crap is real. And she's like, can I just enjoy something? Can I watch anything without you doing this? And I'm like, no, actually. No.
If I can't, you can't. But I've just learned, on the day before my wedding, my dad's a minister. He performed our wedding. And the night before our wedding, my dad was like, here's the advice. You can either have peace or you can be right. Pick which one you want. So I choose peace. So I don't talk to her. My wife, she's a big Beyonce fan. So I don't tell her how Beyonce's demon possessed and her husband is like, is the worst. He's like, he's Diddy on steroids. He just hasn't been caught yet, but whatever.
He's in the Epstein files.
No, I'm not surprised. I'm surprised Epstein's not in his files. But,
yeah.
But anyway, what this is going to show as this rolls out to the normies is just how widespread this religion of the elites really is, because as we said, everyone's in here and everyone is doing these occult practices with these kids. And the reason is that you get into a deal. I know the Faustian bargain, and right now the average person is like, oh, that's stuff in books and in movies. Nobody makes a deal with the devil. Yeah, they actually, to get famous, yeah, they do. How do you think some of these people who cannot act, who cannot sing, who cannot dance are some of the biggest actors, singers, and dancers or whatever in the world? They have no talent. Yep. Yet because they make a deal, and you can become fabulously wealthy and famous if you make a deal with these entities. But part of that deal is I don't want to say selling your soul, because that's a whole other thing. You can't sell your soul per se, but what you can do is you can enter into covenants with these entities, and they will reward you because they need you. They have no creativity. I'm getting off on a little tangent here. They have no creativity of their own. They need human beings to make things more creative for them. And you can look at the lack of creativity that's in entertainment right now as a sign that these entities are getting more powerful. That's why there's no originality. Every movie is the same. Every song is a remake of other songs. I mean, and they're not even, it used to be, I was a big hip hop fan in the 90s, and they would sample stuff, but they would sample stuff from at least 20, 30 years before. Now I will hear a song that sounds familiar, and I'll say, oh, this is my song. Like, oh, then it's like a new person singing the song. Like, yeah. Who are you? That song's only 3 years old and you're already
somebody sampled an Outkast song recently, and I was like, that's not that old. I mean, I guess it's kind of old. It's like 10 years old or something like that. But like, Outkast is not old enough to be sampled. And then, yeah, that got really short. Now it's like 5 years ago. Like the songs from 5 years ago are getting sampled. And yeah, that's an interesting observation, because what they do is they invert and they pervert. They can't create. And now everything is just a copy. There's no originality. That's a fascinating observation that they're gaining. It is.
It's a sample of a sample. There was, there'd be a rapper in the 90s who samples a song, and then they'll sample that rapper's song that sampled another song and make a new. I'm like, there is no creativity. It's insane. I mean, and I'll end with this. If you want to see a movie with like real storyline, you have to go back to like the 70s and 80s. And to see like, oh, here, this is original. You don't get that anymore. But anyway, back to the main point is that you can get this power, but they want something in return. They are going to want a sacrifice from you. They're going to want to blunt sodomize you, and they're going to want to get you into these compromising positions, not just to have blackmail on you, but because by doing these things, you are bringing them into this world. The two things that thin the veil between the spiritual realm and our corporeal realm, blood and sex. That's why, and innocent blood is the most powerful blood. That's where children come in to play. Innocent sex, virginal sex, is the most powerful sex. And we think of it purely on the material realm, but behind that veil, that we can't see it. But when innocent blood is shed, if you could see it, you would see blinding amount of energy happening that is allowing evil power to come into this world. So all those sick things that they were doing with kids, with babies, with sodomy. Here's one thing that I was actually talking with another friend of mine who's we talk about a lot of spiritual things, because I was talking about sodomizing, because a lot of men have to have gay sex in order to get into these higher echelons. I'm like, okay, I understand innocent blood. I understand the methodology behind sex with a child. What about sodomy? What is that? We talked about it, and I think the Holy Spirit was like speaking through us at the time as we were reasoning it out. Like, wait a minute, and sorry to get graphic here, when you have sodomy, there tends to be blood involved, because that's not where you're supposed to be doing it.
Right.
So now you have blood and you have semen, that genetic material mixing. Now with a woman is different, because obviously the anatomy is different. So if you're having sex with a woman, obviously your seed is going to go into the woman. With a man, and it will get into her body, which is, by the way, one of the reasons why I think women who are really promiscuous and aren't using protection are having a lot of mental issues, because you have DNA from many, many people in you. Yes, a lot of it is expelled biologically, through our biological function, but some of it's still there. What is that doing to your DNA when it's mixing in there? So when I told a girl this who was like, "Oh, I'm free. I can have sex with anyone I want." I told her this, and I could just see her. She turned pale because she thought about the implications of all these random dudes possibly having genetic. But with guys, we don't have the same mechanism. However, in sodomy, there's you're gonna burst blood vessels, capillaries, and now another man's genetics are getting in there. And how is that changing you? How is that? Have you noticed? And again, this is really controversial, so I'm not trying to offend anyone who happens to be gay. I'm just saying that I live in Northern California. I'm a 20-minute drive from San Francisco, gay central. And so you can talk to a man for a couple minutes and know, oh, that guy's gay. Why? Because the way he talks, the way he looks, it's almost like physical features change. Huh.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
certainly the way they carry their body, right?
There's also this idea of fecal matter, right? In the Epstein files, which Ben Shapiro said there's no big deal, and Laura Loomer said nothing to see here.
Did they really?
Dude, it's crazy. There's a correlation between the type of people that are saying don't look at this and their genetics. But
That's
whatever.
Interesting.
There's an email correspondence that's accusing a former president of at least being there, participating in the rape, the disembowelment, and the eating of the feces of a child
out of
their intestines after drinking their blood from their feet with a scimitar. And I'm like, why are you eating shit for, man? Like, this is not.
Yeah, and there's something within
delicious.
That Crowleyan sex magic that
what is this called? I mean, there's a joke about it. It's like when you mix these three things, you mix semen, you mix blood, and you mix feces.
Fecal matter, yeah.
Yeah, it's called something within the community, but it's like
I know what you're saying. I've heard. I don't remember the term, but I know that there is a term for it. They call it something.
It came to kind of awareness with the Marina Abramovic spirit cooking time frame that we were going through before the Epstein thing took off. Within that, there was something. It was like Podesta was wrapped up in that.
Santorum, it's called.
Santorum. That's interesting.
Is that it? Okay.
I haven't looked into it because it's disgusting, but there is like a weird spiritual sexual practice where you do mix those three things. And what's the best vessel to mix those three things? Like, somebody's butthole. It's like, it's all right there.
It's like a cauldron.
Also, keep in mind, there's been diagrams. I made a joke out of it in a t-shirt, but when UFOs permeate whatever realm they're coming from or dimension they're coming from into our physical realm, the diagrams that people have drawn they look like puckered buttholes.
They look a lot like
as the UFO flies through it. Yeah. And I just it's a cheeky response, but I'm like, I'm going to put that in my pocket because I think that's significant.
Every time we make a joke about something, it ends up being like more over the target than we realize when we make a joke about it. And it just happens over and over again. Ed, I made a tweet earlier and I was telling you about it where I said, I don't know what's going to happen with this. I do think we're probably at the point where there is going to be an actual not an actual reckoning, a reckoning that moves this script along. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean, like, I was really looking at the QAnon phenomenon those years ago. And then I came to realize like QAnon was this psychological operation. People that are in the community, technically it's called Q, but whatever, and they're the Anons, that are in the community would say it is a psychological operation and it's meant to wake up the masses. And I would say that it's not meant to wake you up in a genuine fashion. It's meant to give you this false binary, this sense of like heroes within the government, call them white hats or patriots in control.
Yeah.
And this operation has been levied against people multitudes of times. There was something called Operation Trust back in the Bolshevik Revolution. But in modern times, you can see it present in the Galactic Federation of Light, which just tells you that you're going to be rescued essentially by these benign alien forces, and then we're all going to ascend. Or Anonymous did the same thing. They had a slogan called "Expect Us." That's how it went. Expect us. Expect Anonymous. We're going to save you. We're going to liberate you. Patriots in Control is the exact same shit. And so I recognize that this was, some sort of a on rails experience. It was funneling us towards a set of things that were going to happen to lead us to a conclusion. I do think that we're going to see, whatever that is. For example, in the Epstein files, there is talk, and it's not necessarily compromising. I don't know what we're looking at when we read this, but someone's going off in a tangent in one of these emails about Biden's mask. It's not Biden. Biden was killed in a firing squad, whatever you would call it.
I remember you talking about that in the last
and that this is a dude in a rubber mask, which people who've seen the evidence for that would nod their heads yes. So what I'm getting at is, no matter where this goes, if there's no arrests and everything just gets swept under the rug again, which I actually think is unlikely, or if everything comes to fruition, what you're dealing with is the world. Right, Ed? I mean, if anything, the Bible shows you this has been happening since the dawn of time. Yes. Child sacrifice, elite ruling priesthood class, all of these terrible slavery and et cetera, et cetera. Everything that you see in the Epstein files that you think is so horrifying is the world. And it has been this way since the dawn of time. Your hope, there's the butthole portals.
That's drawn from a MUFON report. So
oh, wow. Whoa.
Yeah, you can see that, right? I mean,
yes.
I'm just noticing stuff. I don't know.
What I'm saying is, your hope shouldn't be in the world, right? My hope's not in the world. My hope is in Christ. So no, I will not be spiraling no matter what happens. If heads roll and patriots are in control, you've done nothing that the world hasn't already done since, the Bible was written. And if nothing happens, it all gets swept under the rug. It's the world. We're still dealing with the same thing. My hope was never in the world. My hope was in Christ. And so I just, do you think that what we're seeing, when I say it's the world, I mean, that's the truth, right? Everything that I've been learning about the Bible, over these last 2.5 years or whatever it's been, is like this system that we call Epstein and everything that's been happening. Are we called to save the world? Is there something in the Bible and in prophecy and end times prophecy where we rise up and stop the evil cabal and we save the world by rectifying the political system and rooting out the government corruption? I mean, I just don't see that.
There isn't. There's been a Christian movement that was pretty popular in the 1800s, faded dramatically after the World Wars, but now has been coming back quite a bit, especially with the whole Little Season stuff. And that was called something called dominionism. And that was the idea that the world it was also called postmillennialism. And the idea was that postmillennial, it means that they believe that Jesus is going to return. His second coming will be after the millennial reign, as opposed to premillennial, which is where I stand and a lot of other people stand, where that Jesus comes first, then the millennium, because that's the order in the Bible. But there was and so we believe that, there'll be the 7-year period we call the tribulation, Antichrist, all that stuff, Armageddon, Jesus second coming, wipes out the Antichrist army, sets up his millennial kingdom. But there are others who believe that no, the kingdom is now, and that the Christians are supposed to take over and then will reign for 1,000 years, purifying the world. And then at the end of the 1,000 years, will present the world as a gift to Christ. That became popular in the 1800s because that was a time of the Great Awakenings and the missionary journeys that people were going on around the world. And it looked like the world was getting better. The United States was founded during that period of time. And so they became very popular until the world wars, and when over almost 100 million people were killed, and it was decided, okay, world's not getting much better. But now it's come back a bit with folks who, I think the whole preterism, Little Season stuff, people believing that it's in the past, that we are in the millennium and it's the church's job to save the world. But no, biblically, we're not going to save the world. That's not our job. There is no place in the Bible that says that. Jesus' great commission was not go out into the world and make it better. He said, no, go out into the world and make disciples. The church is called, the word church in Greek is ecclesia. It means the called out ones. It means you're called out of the world, not to make the world better. Now, we are called salt and light. But what that means is that, what does salt do? Well, salt back in that time, and even now, it preserves food. If you salt meat, it lasts for a long time. So we're preserving it. But what happens when the salt is taken out? Well, it rots. So, and we've talked about this before. You can correlate the rise of evil with the diminishing of the church. The salt, light, all light's a natural disinfectant. So as the light diminishes and the salt goes away, the world is going to get worse. It's going to rot. But we're never called to save the world. The world is going to be judged, and then a new heaven, new earth, and new Jerusalem comes in.
See, that's the thing that I think is part of the trap right now is like people will say, aren't you supposed to cast this thing out? And it's like, I think evil that happens in front of you is something that you deal with, right? As a human with limited reach and limited ability to do a thing, if evil is happening directly in front of you, you extinguish that. You stop it. You reject it and you cast it out. But when it comes to, especially with this Epstein thing, planetary wide evil, I don't think that strikes me much more as a plot device, as a fulfillment of prophecy, as things going in a direction that is far beyond the reach of the average, follower of Christ. This is a real situation where the only thing you can do that's within your own power is to pick up your own cross and follow Christ. And you can't, are we called to like mobilize, create a resistance, overthrow a government? In my experience, when I look back at history, it seems that every time a resistance happens, a regime change happens, it's an orchestrated, subverted. It almost doesn't even seem like it's a natural proclivity for human beings outside of maybe some tribal instances, right? Like if you went back to like tribal times and you would say to repel
even on small scales, towns have done this, but like a federal government this size.
And it's not even just our federal government, right? The implications are it's also Israel, but it's also who else? What other world leaders are implicated in this? And around each world leader is a secret service and all the apparatus that's associated with that. What are we going to do? It doesn't even make sense. It's like it's a sentiment that can't come to fruition, but I get the sentiment.
So let me be clear. I'm not advocating with what I just said before, and I agree with you, Raven. But I want to really be clear that I'm not saying we should just stand back and say, okay, well, let the world go to hell. We're fine. No, what I'm saying is that we are called to be ambassadors. We are called individual, one-on-one, to disciple other Christians. Now, if we were to all do that, the world as an effect would get better, because if the cause is go out to all men and women, mankind, and make them disciples, well, if that's the cause, the effect would be the world's going to get better. But it's not by taking over countries or becoming overly political or joining I don't want to get on Turning Point USA, but an organization like that. And I'm not crapping on Turning Point USA. What I'm saying is that we weren't called to form political action committees. We're called to disciple human beings, and the effect of that will be the world getting better. But we're not told to go and conquer the world. And unfortunately, a lot of Christians who are very political believe that is our goal. And that's why they will say, vote for this candidate because they're going to be a Christian soldier and bring in and bring, and bring Christ into the government. Should he be there? Yes, absolutely. But we're not called to be secular rulers.
Right. I think the thing that's gotten us in such a vulnerable position where now a lot of us are probably going to look at this as like a viable option. Like, how do we mobilize? How do we overthrow this government and everything? Is that we got to the point in humanity where everything was so comfortable and everything was so demanding. Your 9-to-5 was so demanding, taxes and family rearing and all these things were so demanding that we allowed ourselves into a false position. And that position is believing in, for the first time in human history, that the world was somehow different. It was comfortable, in the West, in a first world country, it was comfortable, but the corruptive nature, this thing of fallen angels pushing agendas and corrupting mankind has been a constant since the dawn of man. And so we've allowed ourselves to think that it's not happening anymore. But when you take the position that this is nothing new under the sun, and we're actually freaking out about, and it is a horrifying thing. I'm not saying that's not horrifying. I'm not trying to downplay it. I'm just saying, would it change your mind at all if you found out that the nature of this realm is exactly that. And that you only were one of the few generations that wasn't privy to it. And now that you are being privy to it, you feel as though you're supposed to do this thing, and you're forgetting, if you're a Christian in particular, what it is that you're called to do. You know, when you're talking about like, let's say the Great Commission, right? Making disciples of men. If 1 million individuals each make a disciple of one other individual, then that immediately doubles to 2 million. And if that expands, then yeah, the entire world is a much better place. And you can see how that actually makes sense. Because if you go, well, what's the alternative? I don't know. I got some friends with some pickup trucks, and we're going to go to maybe DC. I kind of made a little bit of a joke about it, but the internet didn't take it as a joke. They were like, let's do it. I said, what are you going to do? Drive around to DC and find everybody who ordered pizza in the last 10 years? It's untenable and
ineffective. Ineffective, rather. Yeah. And so keep this in mind, that we know, we've read the end of the book. We know how things are going to work out. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And a great example of this is when you get to the end of the book of Deuteronomy, where God commissions the Israelites. He said, go out into the world, be my ambassadors. If you obey my laws, you'll be prosperous. Other nations will see you, and they will say, I want to be like you. And they'll say, okay, if you want to be like us, follow our God, Jehovah, and you'll be like us. And that's how they were going to change the world. But in the end of Deuteronomy, Moses says, you guys are going to fail because you suck. Now you'll do his commission to them was, do the best you can for as long as you can, but eventually you're going to fail. It's the same thing with us. We are to do the best we can for as long as we can, but we know it's not going to work long term, because we've read Revelation. we went over it, over several episodes on this show. So yeah. So I want to just wrap up this portion to get to the next one, but by saying that if the good and bad of Epstein, of these Epstein files out, the good is, I think it's going to show people how widespread this satanic occultism is, because it's not just about getting blackmail of these billionaires and influential people and celebrities having, illicit intercourse and using that against them. It's showing that these are occult rituals. These people are satanic. So what it's doing is hopefully helping people understand just how widespread the occult and Satanism actually is, because most people don't believe it. They're like, oh, that's, like I said, that's just crazy stuff. No, it's really true. But the bad part about it is going to normalize it. And that's what I want to talk about next, because that's where spiritual warfare comes into play. And it's very, very subtle. It's actually, because I'm going to give folks, you're going to learn about this more in my spiritual warfare course. So I'm going to give you a little free lesson about the most subtle and possibly the most powerful weapon that's used against us in spiritual warfare.
Do you think, I don't know if this is where you're going, but we are 2 days away from the Super Bowl, which is the largest occult showing probably in the world every single year. And I'm thinking about it now. So we're about a week out from the release of these files, and people have had some time to really, rummage through it and see a lot of this stuff. A lot of the unbelievers, or the people who don't want to look at the Satanism that is directly connected to the politics and all this other stuff. We're about to have a show about it. And I don't really know how you don't associate yourself. It's almost like they have to, like this guy, Bad Bunny. I don't know much about him, but I'm like,
either.
He's got the worst show ever in the Super Bowl, because he's probably has to do all the stuff.
Oh yeah.
and now all that stuff is in like these files that will implicate you as a pedophile that eats babies. And they're like, hey, do the show.
You got to do the symbolism.
Yeah, you got to do the show. I'm so excited to see what it is.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to watch just for that, because when I first heard Bad Bunny, I have no idea. Like I had never heard of the guy. My sons know him, but know of him. But I'm like, whatever. I didn't care, and plus, I don't really care about either one of the teams in the Super Bowl. So this was probably going to be the Super Bowl where I was going to watch something else. I don't really care about either team. But I'm curious to see what's going to happen here. And that wasn't where I was going, but it's not a bad segue, because I'm interested to see what's going to happen, because there's so much controversy around this person who I swear, if you played one of his songs, if I heard a song on the radio, I would not know who this person is.
Yeah.
So taking a step back, that's why I wanted to set up the idea that what's really behind all of this, the release. Like, why would they release this? Because I never thought we'd see anything. What is the methodology? What is the point of spiritual warfare? What do these entities want? What is their goal in making war against us? And it is, in big picture, it is to separate us from the will and the plan of God. That's what they really want. And so they want to. So if you want to put the goal of spiritual warfare into a nutshell, is to get us as far away from God's plan as possible. And how do you do that? You do that by making sure that we don't focus on God. If we don't focus on him, we can't be a part of his plan. And it requires cognition. See, God, we have to choose God. In order to choose God, to choose his way, to choose to be a Christian, to choose to follow in the steps of Jesus and to grow and be discipled, you have to think. You can't not think and be a part of the kingdom. You cannot not think and be and get into the will of God. So that means that they want to get you in a place where you are not thinking. And where are you not thinking? When you are emotional. When you're overly emotional, you're not thinking anymore. You're irrational. So that's what they want to get us to. So here is something we're going to talk about a lot in the spiritual warfare class, about his one of the main weapons. Because when people think of I'm under spiritual attack, they're thinking of something dramatic, like you have a big financial reversal, you lose your job, you get some kind of devastating weather event happens, you get sick, or something happens to your kids, or something big dramatic. And those things do happen, and they are a part of spiritual warfare. They can be a spiritual attack, but they don't happen every day. What does happen every day? What is the best way to get you to not focus on God? Distraction. Mm-hmm. Distraction is the enemy's most subtle and most powerful weapon, because we don't think of it as a spiritual attack. He wants us distracted. He wants us thinking about anything other than God. And the best distraction is an emotional distraction, because it keeps us, not only does it focus us away from God, it puts us in our emotions. And when you're in emotions, you're not thinking. Yes. And one of the best tools these days for that is social media. What does social media do? It gets you emotional. What does your algorithm do? Your algorithm, wherever your algorithm goes, is to something to either make you, because the two favorite emotions of these entities are rage and fear. What is everything in your social media feed? Making you mad or making you scared. Yep. That's what it's all about. So why are the Epstein files being released? What's our reaction to seeing this? If you are a normie, you are mad. You are angry. Look at what these people who we prop up, who we worship as celebrities, who we believe are our leaders, who swore up and down, I'm not in those files. Epstein's a creep. And there you go. Yeah. Now you're angry. Now for those of us who know more, we're not as angry. And you guys said this yourselves. You've been waiting for this, but you're not outraged. But what are you thinking about? What's next? Yeah. That's fair. So you're angry or you're fearful. Why are those two things, being in those two areas, so devastating for you spiritually? Because both of them are going to, first of all, lead you to sin, and then lead you to something that's even worse and is even more practical for the enemy. Let's look at what those two things are: fear and rage. Fear is a form of faith, actually. Because what is faith? Faith is believing something that hasn't happened yet. Now, the faith that God wants is hope. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So the biblical faith is believing in a hope, a positive thing that hasn't happened yet. Fear is believing in a negative thing that hasn't happened yet. That's not where God wants you. If you faith in God is always hope, because we know how the story is going to end. So let's look really quickly at the first time. We're going to look at the first time both faith and rage are in the Bible. First time, original sin. Adam and Eve eat the forbidden fruit. What do? They hear God walking in the garden. They get scared. They go hide. So they commit a sin. They react in fear. And what does God do? We're going to talk about this in the Genesis, actually probably in the next episode of the Genesis series, because they just did the one on the so-called serpent, the Nakash, and so in Genesis chapter 3. And then God asks them questions. God confronts them to try to get them out of it. God doesn't judge them immediately. God says, Adam, where are you? And Adam says, I heard you coming and I was scared. Why? Did you eat of the fruit? Well, yeah, this was Adam's chance to be brave and get out of the fear and say, he could have said, yeah, God, I ate the forbidden fruit. That was wrong. I shouldn't have done it. My bad. What did he do instead? He says, no, I ate it, but it was because of her. The woman you gave me. He blamed God. He didn't answer God's question. He blamed God. That made things worse. What did he do? He refused to think. When you ask someone a question and they don't answer it, they are stating that they're going to refuse to think. That's why whatever and you see this all the time when these political talking heads are on the air, either far left or far right, and someone will ask them a simple question, like when that guy was killed in Minnesota at the ICE protest. I'm not getting into the good and bad of it, but after that, there was a lady from the NRA. She was on like CNN or something, and one of them asked her a question. He said, "Okay, this guy had a license to carry. You're a Second Amendment person. He got killed. Do you think that was right?" She didn't answer the question. She wouldn't. He asked her again. She wouldn't answer the question. What was she doing? She was refusing to think. And we're going to get why that's so bad in just a second. Okay, so Adam and Eve refused to think, and fear brought them to that. So that's the refusal to think. Let's look at rage, because rage is the other part of this. What was the first time there was rage in the Bible? Cain.
Oh, yep.
Mm-hmm.
So Cain and Abel bring an offering to God, to Jehovah. God accepts Abel's offering. God doesn't have respect for Cain's offering. Cain gets pissed. He hasn't done anything wrong yet. He just got pissed. What does God do? God confronts him to get him out of the rage. He says, why are you mad? I'm paraphrasing, obviously. He says, Cain, why are you mad? Right now, sin is crouching at the door. He's right there. Sin is crouching at the door. What did Cain do? Cain could have said, okay, calm down. How can I make a better sacrifice? No, he went with his rage and he killed his brother. What happened after that? God confronts him again. God asks him a question. Where's your brother? He doesn't answer the question. He says, am I my brother's keeper?
Mm-hmm.
He refused to think. He could have. He refused to think. He was like, he got so enraged. He memory hold his own brother's death. Like, I don't know. You still talking about that Epstein creep? Refusing to think when someone asks you a question shows that you are habituating to a bad circumstance. That's what Cain was doing. That's what you do when you refuse to think. You are telling your brain, I'm not going there anymore. You are habituating to it. So you're getting used to it. It was okay now. So so that's the biblical pattern. How do we bring that to our lives? Look at what's going on and why that's good. Because if God had not confronted Cain again and put the curse on him, Cain would have habituated to the point where it's okay for me to kill. I did it. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to keep going. That happens with us all the time. This is why what's happening with Epstein is they're dripping things out. Why? So that we follow the same pattern. We get angry or scared.
Yep.
We don't think. Then we habituate. We've seen this happen throughout history, throughout our recent history. And again, I'm older than you guys. I'm a middle-aged guy. When I was young, the most outrageous thing you could be was gay. You couldn't be. Yes, that's unheard of. Then what happened? And when I was very young, the AIDS crisis started, and there was an actor named Rock Hudson, manly actor, big, burly, muscular guy. All the ladies loved him. He got AIDS. Came out that he was gay. Everyone was shocked. Everyone was either raging, fearful. What's happening? If Rock Hudson is gay, then what's next? My son I could get AIDS too. Then what happened? We started habituating to it because we didn't think it through. We just habituated to it. The next big thing was Ellen DeGeneres comes out. Now you have a prominent woman coming out as lesbian. Oh my God. Now we habituated to it. And now not only is being gay not a big deal, it's virtually encouraged. Then,
do you know, Ed, how many people are going to find out that like their favorite, like it's going to happen. It's going to happen that their favorite celebrity did this or that. Right now, Nick Fuentes is kind of the groypers are going off saying Epstein had aura. Epstein was kind of base. He's kind of likable, you know, all this crap. It's only a matter of time until somebody starts they're going to break the seal with a meme. It's going to be an anonymous account that's going to say, yo, I still mess with this person, even though they ate babies. And then it's going to spiral. Then somebody's going to actually declare it with their own personal account. And then it's going to become normalized. And then people are going to come out of the woodwork and be like, honestly, not even mad that they did that because this song is a banger or this movie is a banger.
Like a really sad,
we're habituating to it.
Yeah, they're
it goes,
habituating to it.
Yeah, it goes from gay, it went gay, trans, then now trans is normal. You know what's going to be next? Pedophilia is going to be normal. Mark my words. It sounds crazy now. It may sound a little crazy now, but you know what? In the 1980s, when I was growing up, if you had told 10-year-old me that Ed, when you're middle aged, not only is it going to be not a scandal to be gay, it's actually going to be, there'll be more of a scandal if you come out as a Christian than if you come out as gay. I would have told you were nuts. Well, right now, pedophilia is going to be normalized. That's why they're dripping this out, because we're going to do what we always do. Yeah. We're going to get in our emotions. We're not going to think. And then when the next thing is dropped, it's going to be no big deal.
Go ahead.
I'll give one last example. 9/11, shock and outrage. Now terrorism is normalized. TSA, as soon as the TSA started coming out, we were outraged. Everyone was like, this is my freedom. You can't have these people searching me and using these x-ray machines on me. Now, normalized. And so we're getting the pandemic, rage, habituation, normalized. And it's going to keep going.
It's an excellent correlation that you drew, because I mean, I wasn't born in the time period of like, you know, the gay epidemic or the AIDS epidemic, but it's like, yeah, it goes from that, from like exposure, people are shocked, angry, violent. I probably not physically violent, maybe some, but like combative. And that's what you're going to see with this, like, because that's what happens with anything when your paradigm is broken, like, you know, your wife or your wife. My wife doesn't do that stuff because I don't let her. I'm like, no, you're not allowed. But like when they see this thing in their favorite celebrity and they have to come to terms with like, all the shit you guys have been saying has been true, it's either you think or you lash out at the person that told you. Mm-hmm. And that like initial anger is always like misplaced. It's going to be placed on the people who showed you the files, not the people who are doing the things. And then, yeah, that later leads to the acceptance. But something interesting is that you have this Nick Fuentes character who is a gay dude that's being pushed and leading.
Is he out?
Well,
I mean, come on.
And to anybody with eyes. And again, not that I hate the person, but I'm watching you. It's strange. You're leading a bunch of younger dudes and you're kind of gay. He's been saying, like, you know, not running cover for Epstein, but like he's been saying a lot of suspicious things, kind of touching that line of like, we touched the line a little bit about joking about the files, like,
oh yeah,
with the guy Greg. I still think it's very funny.
Gary. Gary's his construction guy on his island.
He owned the concrete company, and they're building tunnels, and
we were making fun of it. We were saying, like, because the documents are very logistic. He's asking for, like, you know, like basically like a garage, and there's got to be like a sub level and everything.
Got to be enough room on
but
the wall.
But then we were
to
saying,
hang
how
babies.
funny is it when you call Gary up a year later and say you have to fill my subterranean levels with concrete,
Goycrete.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of hilarious because Gary is just like has no idea what's going on.
Do you understand the logistics of bringing concrete to an island, Mr. Epstein? But so the point being is that, like, Fuentes is doing this thing where he's kind of like they're kind of like sugarcoating the Epstein thing. And then I look at our boy Elijah.
Oh geez, yeah.
I feel, you know, I have mixed emotions about it because
I feel bad, but it looks like the dude's a huge piece of shit.
Well, we knew he's kind of like a piece of shit and a fed. We told him to his face, but he's been nice. He's been nice to us. The thing is not to his, I guess, you know, not to his family. And this is a bad thing, but Nick Fuentes comes out and immediately starts to be like, oh yeah, this guy has aura too. The same sort of thing.
Yep. Yeah.
And
what
I'm
is
just
that?
like,
that's an interesting. Yeah. What the hell, dude?
And again, like, listen, these are people still. Elijah Schaefer is a person. He's a human being that we met and we know. Pray for this dude. He's all mixed up. He's got his priorities completely incorrect.
Yeah.
Talented broadcaster who has put his work and what he can get right now in
Above
front
his
of
family.
above and beyond his family or any other kind of things. But there's so many people like that.
Yeah.
And it's not just in this, like we could all point at him now or the girl that he was with, but like, yo, dude, go to Wall Street. Every single one of these dudes is like that. They're putting money in front of their family. And this is just a trap that so many people do. This guy just did it in front of a camera.
Yeah. Nancy actually said it. People say that all the time about Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden seems like a cool guy because he's smoking crack and
I could
banging
say
kids.
that about people that I drove truck with.
Yeah.
And we're talking about for, I don't know, $80,000 a year. This is what they're doing. They're going to rub and tug places in the middle of the night and they're doing overtime and they don't see their family.
Yeah.
So it's like money. It doesn't matter how much, what it is, but people do this all the time. And I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying like, these are human beings. Like, yo, like,
yeah, nothing new under the
sun. Trap. And that could be you. That could be me.
That's the world.
You make that deal. That's on you. Just be aware of it. But I just find it interesting that the same technique that's being used to smooth over the Jeffrey Epstein idea is being used by the same person to smooth over the behavior of Elijah Schaffer. And no matter what you feel about Elijah, like I just laid out for this, like the fact that he's a human being, what he did was horrific. To his family, you threw away your whole family. That's not something
just that too.
It's not something to be smoothed over with. Like
what you're presenting to the world, what you're saying the world needs to be, and then what you're doing is like, that hypocrisy. But
sure.
There's something I kind of want to ask both of you guys. So I'll use a quick example. Like, how in the Bible it talks about sending a strong delusion to those who won't see the truth, or maybe those who like lie to themselves, which is kind of the same thing, right? You're lying
those
to
who
yourself.
refuse to think. Yeah.
Yes. So, fat people, right? This is how many people, this is going to resonate with people in the audience and maybe both of you guys here, a fat person who was like, pretty damn big. And then when you go out with them, they order like a salad and they tell you things like, I don't even eat that much. And then they won't finish their food in front of you. And they want to create this illusion in front of you that like, they're not scarfing down crazy shit in the downtime. And so what that does then is you don't believe it because you're a discerning individual who goes, okay, yeah, you're probably eating a bunch of slop all the time, but for whatever reason, you're doing this in front of me. But they start to internalize it to some degree. So then what happens is they start to espouse, well, it's a genetic thing. And then when it's a genetic thing, now it's an unfixable thing. You don't believe that, by the way. They do. Then it gets even worse. Then they start buying into the idea that like, well, big is beautiful because it's not a thing that you can change. And that big is beautiful thing turns into, something akin to a leftist ideology. And it's one domino after another domino.
Self-acceptance. Then the self-acceptance has to turn around and say, you have to accept me. Here's a bunch of laws actually that say you have to.
And meanwhile, you never believed that, but they actually do now. And it's like God has put upon them a strong delusion because they were unwilling to see a fundamental truth about themselves. What I'm wondering is if we're going to see the same thing with these Epstein files. There has been so many people who are unwilling to see that this thing is happening right before their eyes. Because when I was a kid, it was obvious to me. I could see the signs all over Hollywood and all over the music industry, and people told me I was out of my damn mind. And thank God that I never let go of that. And that informed my worldview now. And now I get to sit here and have these conversations with you guys. I think what's going to happen to these people is whatever they desire to lead you into believing next, they're going to use exactly what you're talking about, Ed, which is this shock, this fear, this anxiety, this hatred, this rage. And they're going to they're going to set up the next delusion for you to fall for that God is going to allow you to fall for because you never saw the fundamental truth to begin with. You refused to see it.
When you are bombarded with rage bait and fear bait and you buy into it, again, you cannot think when you're afraid. You cannot think when you're angry. We know we've been like so angry we couldn't think. You know that. We've all done that. We've all been so scared we can't think. But that should just be an occasional thing for us. There's rational fear. If you're hiking in the woods and you see a bear, that's a good fear.
Yeah.
If you see someone, attacking your child and you get angry, that's a good anger, but you should not be in that. You should not habituate to fear. But that's what social media does. You can doom scroll and get habituated to fear and anger, and you're not thinking. And you brought up I think Top, you're talking about the whole, both of you are talking about people being, overweight and habituating to that. There's a Target, not too far from us where we do a lot of our, shopping for stuff. And, you guys are old enough to know that back in the day, mannequins used to be kind of hot. You know, you wanted a thin mannequin with, you know, with the
Now you got
boobs,
fat
and the male mannequins were all muscular dudes. Now I go into Target and they're fat mannequins.
Yep.
And the people in Target, you know, the photos, there used to be photos of like, you know, supermodel looking women modeling the clothes. Now they got, I'm sorry, butt ugly women.
Yeah.
Who I would not, like, dude, why? I get it. I mean, we aren't all perfect. We all have our physical flaws, but the point is you should be aspiring to be, you know, thin and voluptuous if you're a woman. You should be aspiring to be in great shape and muscular if you're a dude. I know I could be in better shape. I don't need to see a dude who looks like a middle-aged dad bod guy. I don't need to see that. I want to see someone I can aspire to. I don't want to see someone who looks worse than me wearing clothes I want to buy. But the whole point is, but if you bring that up, you're body shaming. I'm like, did you just think about my whole explanation? No, you're body shaming. You're wrong. Like when like the Grammys thing, when I brought it to my wife, you know, this person is being disingenuous. You haven't lived her life. I'm like, I didn't say I lived her life. I'm just saying she's disingenuous because celebrities are always virtue signaling. You're not thinking about what I said and having a cognitive experience. You are enraged because you're on, my wife isn't here. She's not going to ever watch the shows because she doesn't watch my stuff. That's fine. I can say this. You're always doom scrolling Instagram.
Yeah.
And that just keeps you in that mindset of emotion. So you have habituated to not thinking. So what's the cure? And we're going to talk about this in depth in the spiritual warfare class. It's, of course, to do the opposite, to always ask questions, to always be in cognition, to learn how to not be triggered. That is so huge. If you can, because, you know, John Lenhart, my partner in this, he is an expert in the mind and brain, and he can actually teach you in about 5 minutes how to find your triggers and how to rehearse them away so that when something happens, you don't fly into a rage immediately. Or if you do, you see it quickly and you get out of the rage. You let all the dopamine calm down, and now you can think it through. Oh, and one of the most valuable things you can get out of this class is how to argue. I use this on my wife all the time. That's why the Grammy thing didn't last very long, because I learned how to get her out of the emotion and how to get her. And I'll give you a hint, men. You never, in an argument, never defend yourself. Never defend yourself. Don't do it. You always turn it back on her, because when she was arguing with me, she's saying, you haven't lived this woman's life. You don't know. I could have got defensive and saying, I wasn't saying that, blah, blah, blah. But I said, you know what? Sounds like you're fighting someone, but I don't think it's me. What's really going on here?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's not about me anymore. It's back to her. Now she has to tell me why now I'm asking her a question and forcing her to be cognitive. But if I got defensive, then I'm just giving her more bait.
Yeah. I think one of the traps that we're going into is people who have been exposed to this thing for a really long time should be the cooler heads, right? Guys like us who are, this is the world. We understand the nature of the world. We've seen this for a long time. We should be the cooler heads. The trap that's set up for us is vindication, because what's happening right now is I'm constantly being met. It's remarkable. The level of vindication. It's not like it was even in COVID. You know, COVID was just like, yo, told you so. Told you they were going to do this, told you not to do that, told you not to get involved with this, told you to stand up and, you know, defend yourself and make your no me no and all this other crap. But now it's on a whole other level. And I think what I'm realizing is like this vindication leads to it's not pointing towards Christ unless you use it that way. Unless you use it that way, because like I was talking about it on Facebook again, which is like folly, I know, but it's fun. Where I was saying, like, you know, if you've got a homie that's been talking about this for like 20 years and you're not turning to them right now and saying, hey, sorry, then I don't know what you're doing. Because I've been in so many situations where not only was I ridiculed, but I was explaining, you know, that the nature of the world is not what it seems. And I would watch people's eyes glaze over. And then I would watch those same unthinking people go and adhere to the next political or cultural movement that they didn't understand at all. Yeah. Right. And so I thought about it and I said, well, what if somebody comments right now and they go, well, what is happening? There's a certain pull that makes you want to go, well, this is what the elites are doing. And this is what's going on. And it's like, no.
Can't do that.
You got to tell them Jesus Christ from the lineage of David, the Jesus Christ of the Bible, the Son of God who came and died for your sins, is real And the culture in the West has been propping up this thing for you to think that is a mockery. If there's anything, if you see any wisdom in the homie who's been doing this for 20 years, look to them. And if they're not pointing towards like, yeah, dude, it's the craziest thing in all this, Jesus Christ is real. Every comedian we've seen get on stage and make fun of him. Every scandal in Christianity or Catholicism that made you fall away from the church, all the apparatus that you've been subjected to for 30, 40, 50 years here in the West that made you think that this was just a bullshit control mechanism it was literally put in place to mischaracterize the real important message. The real important message is a way to redemption has been made because God came in the flesh and died for your sins. Like that, that's the actual thing.
I would say to you, be careful with that, because what you're doing now is the same thing that you were doing years ago, but with Jesus Christ. And people are going, I'm not saying that you're wrong. You weren't wrong back then, but people are going to look at it because they've done it to me. They do it to my mom all the time, who has been ministering for Jesus Christ for a long time ineffectively, because I don't know. Like, you tell people about this and they go, yeah, right. Like Epstein's murdering kids in his island. Yeah. Like Jesus Christ died. Yeah. Jesus is
that's
the thing,
right?
There's a way, the way I do it different, and you should do it different too. But like the show, I think is the good way to really like drive home the sales pitch. Right. So right there, that sales pitch, boom. These are the people that are listening, but there are people that are friends and family that you'd have to get them to listen to the show to ultimately get to that, that final sales pitch. But I can't tell them straight out that what I'm saying there. I can only nudge them in a direction, and I'll use like humor, even like ridicule. Like there's been some humiliation that I've had to like do to people. Like my sister's my wife's stepsister.
Yeah.
She was obviously on the other side of this, and
she's the one that came around recently, right? And was like,
but
shit, you were right.
For me, it was always about like using humor to cut her off at the knees, and then like after a while, that humor, which she didn't like, she thought I was stupid for using it, that turns into humiliation, and then that humiliation kind of like blossomed to like she's asking questions. She's asked me some questions along the way, and I'll tell her a little bit. Here's a little bit. Hopefully, we have enough time, because I can't just like bombard you with all the stuff that we know and what you should be believing right now, because you're not gonna get there.
You almost got to tell them like, okay, I can't tell you even much. All I can tell you is like the God of this universe, like Jesus Christ, you need to develop a relationship with him. He's real. You can't see him, but you've got to work on earnestly trying to develop because I think if you call out in earnest to God, he answers, right? And that process is going to be exactly what you need, not what I can facilitate.
But does that person want, I guess this is like the difference between like, I don't know, like ministry and then like actually what is ministry? Like, how do you talk to somebody who doesn't want that thing?
Well, that's the thing is, so this is in the rare occasion that anybody is actually going to come to you and you're like, yo, you've been talking this shit.
Yeah, explain it. And then we could explain
it. But that's like still, even no matter how crazy the world gets, I expect that to be an unbelievably small minority of people that are ever going to think back to the people in their life who said this is what was going on and then turn to them as some sort of like lifeline. Like, hey, help me understand this because Stephen A. Smith and Bill Maher are talking about it and they don't seem to really have a grip on this thing.
So I would say one of the ways that I get, I'm not an evangelist per se. I'm a teacher, obviously. But, when there is an opportunity to evangelize, I always start with what they already believe, because there are certain things that every human being already believes that will lead them to Christ. And one of the things is justice. And if you see that right now, use Epstein as an example, all this stuff, this is unjust. I don't think there's anyone who is sane who would say that what was going on with these girls, with these children, with these babies is just, is unjust. So someone is behind injustice. And now we know with all the occult stuff, there was something spiritual behind injustice. So if there is something spiritual behind injustice, then the converse scientifically and philosophically has to also be true. There's also justice. You believe in justice. So if there is a spiritual force behind injustice, then scientifically and philosophically, there has to be a spiritual force behind justice. I don't bring in the God of the Bible. They're not ready for that yet. Just start with that. So there must be a spiritual force behind justice, and whatever that. So if the evil is completely unjust, then whatever is on the side of justice has to be completely just. Will you acknowledge that? Sure, great. I'll let you go. Marinate on that, and then next time we'll talk more about what this just spiritual entity would have to be like, and that would open the door, because they already believe in justice. They believe in things like beauty. What is beauty? Well, beauty, scientifically speaking, is our recognition of symmetry. Symmetry, things are symmetrical. That's order. Order implies intention. Things do not become orderly on accident. That's contradictory. That's violates the second law of thermodynamics. So if there is order in the world, if there's beauty, that means there's order. If there's order, then there's intention. That means that something made that thing beautiful. Mm-hmm. So, and intention. So there was an intelligence behind beauty. It wasn't a random accident. If you see something beautiful, you were acknowledging intelligence behind it. What is that intelligence? Oh, you got it. I didn't say it was God of the Bible. I just said there was intelligence behind it, because you just admitted that this rose is beautiful. Beauty is symmetry. Symmetry is order. Order is intention. Intention implies intelligence. You've just admitted that there's intelligence. So I'll let you marinate on that. We'll talk about it again later.
Yeah, it's you're right. It's the only way. I mean, that's what it is. You don't convert people. You plant seeds, right? Yeah. That's what you're talking about, Ed. Is you're talking about planting seeds. In my experience,
plant seed and you can water, but you don't make it grow.
No, yeah. That's it.
Paul
There's planters and there's waterers, right?
Yeah. But we, in the end, I think we have to be real comfortable with that idea of like, I can't make it. I know I'm not the, what's the final sales guy. I need these hands. I'm at church. I need a hand up there.
Can I get a hand?
Can I get a hand? Can I get people? I need to see 5 people here give their life. That's not up to you, man.
Yeah. That's the difference. I mean, I admire evangelists because I'm not one. You know what your spirit. Say again.
There's some that can, not me.
Oh yeah, no, there are, but we need them. I mean, because the Bible talks about the spiritual gifts. He said he gave it to some to be evangelists, some to be teachers, some to be prophets, some to be apostles, some to be organizers. And you know what that is because it's what you're passionate about. I'm passionate about teaching, so I know that. There are others I know who are passionate about evangelism. They are just passionate to go out there and just talk about the love of Jesus to everyone, even if it annoys the crap out of them. And whether that's good or bad, we can talk about that. But that's their passion. But you have to know how to do it the right way. So
I'm not trying to limit what we're called to do or what we're supposed to do, but it has become glaringly obvious to me that like our people are conspiracy theorists. There's a certain way a conspiracy theorist thinks. There's a certain person that they're willing to listen to and a type of person they're not willing to listen to. And you need to at least exhibit some understanding of the things that they understand. If you can speak the same language as them, then they're willing to sit down and listen to you. And those are the people that I think resonate with this show the most.
And just so you know, conspiracy theorists are generally prophets if they're spiritual. That's the gift. Prophecy is John Lenhart would call it perceiver. A prophet is just someone who goes out there and speaks the truth. That's what prophets do. They went out there. They weren't the nicest people in the world. They weren't the most understanding or compassionate. Prophets in the Bible, like what did Jonah do when he finally, after the whole thing with the great fish, he went into Nineveh and said, in 40 days, you get destroyed. That's what he would say. Many of the prophets, especially the so-called minor prophets, Joel, Obadiah, they just walked around saying, you guys are going to get the crap kicked out of you. It wasn't an evangelical message. Prophets are out to just tell you the truth and hope that it motivates you. And that's the conspiracy community. We're mostly on the prophet side. We're just telling you the truth.
Yeah.
They're not evangelists. They're not teachers necessarily. They are like, boom, here it is. And you're stupid if you don't understand it.
Yeah.
That's been the most revealing thing of the last couple of weeks with what we've been going through, like banished from the polite society and a community of people who we never reached anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like, at first you feel the threat and you go, oh man, like you're bracing for the punch. And then you go, no, we've been here before. And as a matter of fact, those aren't our people. And I'm like, I'm more comfortable with that idea. I still love to talk to these people, but in the end of the day, these are our people, the people that are here now, the ones that will listen in the future. And it's like, well, that's who I'm supposed to talk to. I'm not supposed to talk to the entire world. We got to talk to those who listen. And if they don't, we dust our feet. And you know what? It's a great litmus test. It's a good polarity of like, those people won't listen anyway. So it's like, well, what are you even stressing about?
Yeah.
I've
been very accustomed to people that won't listen.
Yeah.
That was, I haven't had any success in this in any way, shape, or form. I went from maybe having 3 to 4 people in my life at any given moment who would actually listen to the things that I say. And maybe that's even being, generous. And then all of a sudden, thousands. And so a couple of them aren't going to listen to me. This group over there is not going to listen to me. I'm casted out of that group because I'm not seen fit to whatever, dude. That's been my entire life. Like I said, I'm very familiar with the look in a person's eyes when you try to tell them a thing and you watch it glaze over, and it's just like, all right, man.
It might be a blessing because you get I don't know if this will work on me because I'm just too dumb to like do it. But if you get an audience that's not your audience, and then you realize that they're asking for you to do a thing that you don't do. I've seen a lot of people do that thing, and then you're not you. So then you end up losing, you die.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's kind of, it's good that you don't have that. You have the people that are going to come to you.
Yeah.
That want to hear this. So you just keep saying what you've been saying for 10 years.
I had that a lot too, because, now we have the resolve that's built up from having like an audience and being really rooted in our ideas and certain in Christ. I didn't even have all that when I was younger. And I had every reason to stop saying the things that I was saying because it was not giving me social success at all. It was, I was saying this crap to my family and that's, friends and everything. I was just a novelty among some of my friends who were like, yeah, I got that friend who says crazy crap. Like, tell him some crazy crap, Dave. And I'd be like, did you know the lizard people? So now that I have whatever resolve that's been built up, I mean, the audience is one thing, but when you have your foundation in Christ, it's like, okay, that's the most important thing. So what? The world doesn't like when you go out and you spread the truth? Mm-hmm. Big whoop, dude. Like, that's what you're called to do. Christ is real and he's called you. He's given you a job. Like, go out and do that. So I was doing it before I had any of that, but I think it's going to be a real mess for these people, Ed, when they get led down this road by a narrative that just what it's asking of you is to be afraid and to be angry.
Yeah. So just, prophets are never popular. They're like artists. Artists are never popular until they're dead. They're like, oh, now I appreciate the artwork. Yeah. So it's tough being a prophet. What happened to all the prophets in the Bible? Most of them got killed, like by the people they were prophesying to. So I want to talk 2 more things. I want to talk about really quickly the ultimate, the ultimate, like, I wouldn't say evil, the ultimate bad thing is going to happen if you stay down that trail. And then I want to talk about what I think comes next. So okay, quickly, great. If you get emotional, if you habituate to being emotional, and then you habituate to not thinking, the horrible end result of that is you can be programmed. We talked about MK Ultra. What happens in MK Ultra? They get people in their emotions. They traumatize them.
Yep.
They give them trauma. Then they stop thinking, so they have to think about the trauma. And once they get them to that state where they're no longer thinking, that's when they program them. And they perfected it over, with what was it, Operation Paperclip, bringing all those crazy Nazi guys who knew about all this stuff. And they experimented, they traumatized people, they got them to not think, and then they programmed them to be whatever they want. And that's what's happening to us in mass. Social media starts on us. We habituate to rage or fear or lust or whatever. Then we stop thinking about it because that's the only way we can cope, is to intentionally not think, not answer questions, not do deep dives. Have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Yeah,
I've heard it, but I don't know. I don't remember what it is.
Like
what it is in a nutshell is why idiots think they're smart.
Exactly.
Oh, that's right. This is what he said to us.
This is Timothy Alberino accused us of this.
Did he say that?
Yeah, but I said he's much more. It's like, I like the IQ bell curve, where you have the idiots on the low end of the IQ bell curve who are saying the same things as the geniuses on the high end of the bell curve. But in the average bell curve segment, you have the overly confident midwits. And I would say that's exactly what Timothy Alberino is.
He accused us of what he is. And actually, a good point to bring up is, I tell this to David all the time, because like I'll get mad at shit. And I'm like, yo, if we're operating in comedy, if I'm mad, I gotta step away. And there were times where I'm like, I don't like this guy. So I stop like making jokes about him for that day or the next day until I'm like, okay, I'm cool. I've cooled down, because that's not me. I've been disassociated from my faculties. And then whatever comes out of that it'll probably be funny, but it'll be mean.
Yeah.
And that'll be like Top Lobster. It's not going to be Danny making these jokes. This is my alter ego now. And that's a crazy way to say it, but like that comes from a vicious side, and that's not me. So like, all right, if we're not having fun, you got to step away from it.
Yeah.
Step
That's
away from
really
that.
what I've learned is the fun thing is the proper place to be. And I think that's like, the spirit of a child, right? Like I don't know. I'm not saying that that's what the Bible is talking about. It's talking about dragging Timothy Alberino.
No, it's not
but I'm
talking
just
about
saying, to have the spirit of a child is to not be, I think, filled with malice. And so I try to avoid that these days, but I'm sorry, Ed, go on.
No, okay. No, yeah. Well, in a nutshell, Dunning-Kruger is actually something that Sam Tripoli, who was a savant, has said. He says he calls them people who are arrogant about their ignorance.
Yeah,
that's Dunning-Kruger. There's people who are. If you see someone who is supremely confident about what they know, that's a sign that you're an idiot. Because intelligent people doubt themselves all the time. Because if you're intelligent, you're saying, "This is what I think, but I could be wrong." Because if you're intelligent, you understand the complexity of something. You understand things are so complex. It's like, the more I learn, the more I realize I have to learn. That's what an intelligent person says. An idiot says, I'm an expert here and I don't need to know anything else. So, and that's why like some of the biggest idiots in the world I've encountered are like, I don't mean to insult people who are in this profession, but some of the best salespeople are outstanding Dunning-Kruger prototypes. Because they know you buy this thing, it's going to do this thing for you, it's going to make it great. There's no doubt in them at all. And people are attracted to confidence. Oh, this guy really knows what he's talking about. So I bring that up because that's where you get emotional. You're no longer thinking and you've habituated to not thinking. You think that everything that's complex is simple and you think you get it. So that's someone watches a YouTube channel, a YouTube show about something in economics, and all of a sudden they're an expert in economics. Oh, I know this. Here's put your money in this crypto. You'll be fine. Now I know this because I watched a video on crypto. That's the not thinking. And that's when you get programmed. So what's happening is we as a society with our social media and our algorithms, which are intentionally put there to keep you enraged. I watched one video on Epstein. My algorithm in YouTube is full of Jeffrey Epstein stuff. And then there was one video, not from you guys. There was one video about a guy who was talking about how he believed Epstein was with Mossad. And so I watched the whole thing because I was curious. Now there's a bunch of stuff in my YouTube algorithm about anti-Israel like stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I got to put not interested on all those because it's feeding me. It says, oh, you don't like Israel. Well, here's a whole bunch of stuff to enrage you. And then you can be programmed to be the next, get programmed for whatever's coming next, which is what I want to talk about coming next.
I had that
guilty.
Yes, I had that moment when I started to dive into the whole like Jewish question thing. And then if it wasn't for the fact that I think I am brutally honest often about my own, intellectual shortcomings.
Well, you're a conspiracy theorist also, so you're very suspicious of everything.
Well, it's not just that. I mean,
so suspecting yourself.
So I'm watching like Europa, and Europa has really fascinating information I had never been subjected to. And sure, like my conspiracy radar went off and I feel like I was watching a piece of propaganda, but I will never pretend that I finished a 10-hour documentary. I will always say I went on Stu Peters and talked about the Jews and the Bolshevik, revolution and all this crap. And even when I talk about, the Bolsheviks taking over Moscow and implementing that anti-Semitism bill, you'll often hear me say, that's about as far as I got in that documentary. And I say the same facts over and over again. I could pretend, I could lie and lean on my own intellect and make it sound because I'm good at presenting things like I know what I'm talking about. I was on Stu Peters talking about the Jews based off of 3 hours of a 10-hour documentary I didn't even commit to. Now I'm in a documentary called Occupy, which is hilarious because if you watch that, I got people DMing me. They're like, I saw you talking about the Jews in this documentary Occupy. You know how funny that is? I'm an idiot. And you watched what I said when all I did was because I didn't know what I was coming on for. I was just talking to Stu Peters, just asking me questions. I had no idea the context that this would be framed in. Like, you really don't understand what it is when somebody comes to you. They're like, hey, I'm working on the documentary. You're not afraid to talk about like the Jews. Would you mind if I ask you some questions? I've been on your platform a bunch of times and you've been really kind to me. Sure. Sure, I'll do that. I come on, he asks me some questions. I go, well, learn about the Bolsheviks and da 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 da. And the next thing I know, he takes an hour-long question or an hour-long series of questions, puts it into 15 minutes, puts it in his documentary. I look like a wizard on the Jews. You just listen to me. And now all of a sudden you think that, and I'm an idiot, which is like, how many times have I been subjected to something like that? How many times have any of us sat back and watched some shit on YouTube and we've eaten it up? And we've gone, the work is done, the research is done. Meanwhile, it was some idiot like me presenting some deep and really complicated subject to you. If it wasn't for, you know how easy it would be for me, because God has gifted me with the ability to not shut the hell up.
I noticed.
I could convince so many idiots that I am the supreme idiot. You know what I mean? But I don't. It's constantly, because you're right, Ed. The more you learn, it's constant reminder of how much you don't know. And if you have any humility at all, you would start to suspect, well, I wonder if I'm in that position right now. That position that I've been in over and over again, where I think that I know something and then I'm proven to not know much at all. I bet you I'm standing in that right now. I bet you I don't know shit right now. And so I'm constantly in that. And that's why we get we call ourselves retards. Part of the reason that I do it is because I've been wrong so many times. How could I ever stand up and tell anybody I've got it all figured out now?
I will tell you, one of the things I hear that makes me the most nervous is when I'm getting a comment, on Patreon or on Faith by Reason or wherever, and someone says, Ed, you're an expert on the Bible. Can you answer this question? I'm like, no, I'm not expert. Now I'm like, okay, this person is going to take what I say as the gospel truth. And I will say, I do my best. Do I know more than a lot of people? Maybe, sure. But no, I am not. I'm still, every day I learn something new.
Yeah.
So no, don't call me that. I mean, if I want to put you on the right path, I am not going to tell you what to think.
Yeah.
I will say, here's how you can find out more. Here's what I think. Here's the road you should go down. But oh God, no, I'm no expert.
I just tell people what I've seen. Like this is what I've seen. This is the connections that I've made. Sometimes I'll check in with the chat. Like, am I, overreaching? Like that thing that we discussed before the show, Ed, about like the points that Alberino made on the show. I don't know if I've talked about this. I'm going to talk about it really briefly. Alberino was on the show and he's trying to separate the alien phenomenon from demons, but there's also a third thing, and that is like the spiritual realm. Those are like the real three big elements of that episode. And he's talking about the prophets and where are they going? Are they going anywhere? I don't think they're going anywhere. It's not a realm. So he's talking about out-of-body experiences. What we would say, these prophets saw things in the spirit, which is what the Bible says, whatever. He's trying to draw some delineation between those three elements. And then all of a sudden within the Epstein files, I find a conversation between Epstein and a guy named Lawrence Krauss. And he's asking Krauss to formulate an argument for him, which is interesting because Epstein seems to be a guy who's got his faculties about him when it comes to a multitude of topics. He's very interested in a lot of things, but this is an instance where he's reaching out to another individual and asking him to formulate an argument, a debate. And that debate seeks to separate three things: aliens, ghosts, which ghosts I would say are demonic encounters. Most of the time you have a thing that's masquerading as a dead loved one. It's masquerading as a little boy stuck in this house. It's masquerading as a human. It's not. And then the third element is out-of-body experiences, which is interesting because that is the spiritual realm, the astral realm, you name it, whatever. If a prophet is having an experience and he's in the spirit and he's seeing it, that's an out-of-body experience. So why is Epstein trying to, and he's reaching out to outsource this thing? Help me separate these things. Because he even says in the email, people are drawing correlation between these things. I want to separate that. And why the hell this dude was doing it on the show, it's beyond me. I can't even remember. Why the hell did I just bring that up just now?
So you're trying to verify if you are reaching or correlating things that aren't correlated. And yeah, I gotta ask myself, am I
crazy? Am I reaching there?
Or do things happen in tandem? Like that's a very good possibility too. Obviously we don't like somebody, but like do things happen all the time in tandem? Like, does somebody create something and then across the world somebody else creates that thing as well for whatever reason? I don't know. That's a possibility too. So I gotta
They
Are-
could both
am I
be being
crazy?
influenced by the same entity.
Well, that's the thing is like I'm trying not to say
Yeah.
that he's running like an Epstein narrative. I'm just wondering like, oh, does this dude is he running a narrative that he doesn't understand the origins of?
He could be,
Like-
because again, remember, these entities, they're not omnipresent like God is. They can't be everywhere at once, but they are in a realm. Sorry, Tim, there is a spiritual realm. That's where we know that, because when we die, we're no longer in this realm. We're someplace else. I mean, eternal. So there's a different. The rules of locality in that realm are very different from ours. When we talked about this the last time I was on. If you want to understand higher dimensions, you need to first. It's easier to understand lower dimensions. To go from 2 dimensions to 3. If I draw two people on a piece of paper, I can take, if I draw a man and a woman on a piece of paper, I can take my 2 fingers and be in contact with both of them in ways that they can't with each other because I'm in a higher dimension. So these entities, they could be communicating with each other. For one could be here talking to me, one could be in India talking to someone else, and they're both communicating with each other while they're communicating with me and whoever else in India and correlating that information. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't see, and we need to keep that in mind, that they're not as limited as we are. So it's really important to know that. So
Well, I just want to say before we move on, like the real point of that is like I'm not saying anything definitively. I'm just seeing something, and then like I'll reach out to the chat, or I'll reach out to Top, or I'll have conversations with you, Ed, or anybody, and I'm like, am I seeing this through the right lens? You'll never hear me pretend to be an authority on a thing or have it all figured out.
It's always good to have that foil that you could, just bounce an idea against, because you're like, I know I'm seeing things from one direct. Matt's our foil for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I know which way I'm seeing from. Sometimes David will ask me advice. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm just as crazy as you. We sit here all day, so we got to have like just verify. And but I don't know.
And that's another. Sorry, and that's another remedy to not thinking, is getting another point of view, because once you think something, you get, again with social media, you get affirmation. Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. So I'm not getting anything in my algorithm from the other's point of view. So it helps me to not think, because I already believe I'm right, which is where I brought in the Dunning-Kruger effect. You think you're right, and it's reinforced, and you're not. So I don't have to think about this thing anymore. I'm right. Everything I see in social media, I've been on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Everything's telling me the same thing. So I must be right. Yeah, because there's a whole world you're not getting information from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I want to talk about what I think may be coming next, because you were talking before about the next thing. Is it going to be a war? Is it going to be an economy crash? Is it going to be disclosure? And we talked about it last week last time I was on, when I asked you, why do you think disclosure is coming? And you gave me good reasons. And I said, okay, good reasons. And now I'm edging even more towards that because of some things I've seen recently in the last week on some of these, on a lot of the people who are talking about stuff who we consider influential. Because as I said, once emotional, no thinking, you can be programmed. What are they programming you for? I'll give you an example of one thing that they've been trying to program into us for over 20 years, maybe I would say almost 50 years. Civil war. Everyone says, oh, we're headed to support civil war. And I've always been like, I don't think so, because in order to have a civil war, you need 2 armies. We don't want to fight. I don't care how much I don't like someone else politically. I'm not going to get a gun and go march into their town and kill them in mass with a bunch of other dudes. That's ridiculous. But they keep programming us. Civil war, civil war. When the stuff happened in Minnesota with the ICE protests and that poor guy got killed, whether you agree with him or not, he shouldn't have died. And now people are outraged. And what happened then? Well, we're headed towards civil war. They're programming you. So here's something that I've seen very recently, which has really caught my attention. And so first, Candace Owens, she is, I think since her husband converted her to Catholicism, I think it was in 24, she has been Miss Super Catholic. She went from I guess she was Protestant or evangelical before, I'm not sure. I guess something like that. Now she's like the most Catholic person in the world. If you listen to her, she's got the cross behind her with Jesus on it, which I always find interesting that in Catholicism, Jesus never stops dying. Have you noticed that? He's always on the cross. You're always eating his body. He's always sacrificing himself for you every Sunday. I'm like, dude, can you guys take him off the cross for a minute? Let him get a breather. Anyway, tangent. And the reason, and she was like, if you're really smart, you're going to be. She told her buddy Charlie Kirk one time. I think she was half joking. She said, you're too smart to be a Protestant. In other words, if you read the Bible on your own, you're dumb. But if you allow some guy in a robe who likes diddling children to tell you what the Bible says, then you're smart. It's your thing. Mm-hmm. So enough. And now I got the Catholics hating me again. I got to keep that. I got to keep that rage. But the whole point of this is that this week, I think, it's been talking about the Nephilim. Yeah. She's been talking about Gilgamesh.
He's going nuts. Here's something she tweeted or she put out today. And I don't want to take you off your point, but her and Charlie Kirk were talking about astral projection. And
I heard that a lot. Yeah. So I heard say that yesterday. Yeah. I'm like,
she's in some other spot, which I enjoy. But I'm watching her suspiciously. Like, what do you do? You're operating outside of your code here.
Oh, I don't trust her at all. I think she's I think she's a plant. I think she's a church plant. I think I believe she's in league with. The more I listen to her, I'm like, you are a plant. You are rage baiting. That's all you do. You want to get people pissed off. If that's all you're doing is trying to make people angry, if that's your main goal, then you are part of the problem that we've just been talking about. But why is it interesting that she's talking about the Nephilim and Gilgamesh, and not just Nephilim is because they're in the Bible, obviously, but she's talking about them as the offspring of humans and fallen angels. This is interesting because that interpretation of the Nephilim is not part of Catholic orthodoxy. It is not. Now, that's not to say if you're a Catholic, you don't believe in the Nephilim the way we do. I'm saying you can, I know Catholics who don't necessarily subscribe to everything the church says in the catechisms and all that, but she is, again, Miss Super Catholic, that I only believe what my church tells me. The Catholic Church does not teach that the Nephilim are the offspring of humans and fallen angels. Why is she saying it all of a sudden? Interesting that she's going off the reservation a bit and pushing this whole thing, the Gilgamesh stuff, that Iraq war, they went in there and they secured that, and they took stuff. They maybe took the body of Gilgamesh out of there because she had a clip from the late Rob Skiba. She played him, and and Skiba says that that they found the body of Gilgamesh and it was very well preserved. And they took it out of there to get his DNA to make the Antichrist. That's what Skiba says. She had that on her show. Oh, that's very non-Catholic. Say again.
You ever see the videos?
I've seen a lot of Skiba's videos. I mean, I don't know if I saw that.
I mean, so there's been videos that have been floating around for a long time, since the early 2000s, and they keep making the cycles, and it's who the heck knows what you're looking at. But I've seen them enough times where I go, I kind of wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing something real here. And it is like a really well preserved body.
Oh,
great beard. I mean, like,
by the way, we'll be on with Rob Skiba's son.
Oh
soon.
Yeah, that's right. We'll be going on their show soon.
Yeah.
But his skin is like bronze, like it's really remarkable, like the skin tone. He's really well preserved. He's adorned in gold, and yeah, his beard is like every dude that's trying carved. Like a dude that's trying to sell you like beard oil is like their formula's wrong. Like whatever is going on.
Need to find out what he was using.
They could just get a beard oil industry going from this dude's genetics if they could put that in a bottle. Like it's unbelievable. Yeah. So that is interesting though.
So she's doing that. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Then I saw her counterpart, Tucker Carlson, had a dude on his show who was also talking about pyramids and Nephilim and giant statues and all this. I'm like, wait a minute. These two are, and I'm okay. If what's his name? If Fuentes starts talking about the Nephilim, okay, there's a trifecta.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah.
So that leads me to believe that maybe the next thing they're programming for could be disclosure.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to do it like the Epstein files are out, and you're like, I'm going to do like a 3-part episode about the Nephilim and Nimrod specifically, who she does like end up being the possible Antichrist, and I'm just like nothing surprises me anymore.
Yeah,
but yeah, we see which way you're aimed, and that's like the direction that you have to steer the narrative right now.
And every time you aim that way, I go like, great, I got to do inventory now. I got to check on my own ideas and just make sure that.
But our ideas are correct. I think. I hope. Just why are they being presented now is the question.
Yeah,
that's always the question. Well, why from you? Why right now?
I think you need to
habituation.
Co-opt the truth.
That I think it's habituation. They're trying to habituate us. They're habituating us towards pedophilia. They're habituating us towards disclosure and aliens and the supernatural, so that when it happens, like we talked about in the Revelation series, I told you, and I gave my theory, which people called crazy at the time, and I will admit it was out there at the time. I believed that the Antichrist will be the reincarnation of Nimrod. I thought this before I knew about. You can go back to my Faith by Reason series on it. I did a blog post and a video and a podcast about this before any of this stuff started happening. Is that just from reading the Bible, I felt that Nimrod was going to be reincarnated as the Antichrist, or I believe the spirit of Nimrod is going to inhabit the body of this entity.
Mhm.
And now here it comes, and
Yeah.
we're being habituated to it. It's out there. First, it's outrageous. This is crazy. Candace is losing her mind, and Tucker's nuts. Then we become then we stop thinking about it. Then we become habituated to it. So next time we hear it, oh yeah, I heard something about Nimrod. Oh, here he is. Get this. He wants me to take this mark in my right hand or forehead.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel, Ed? Like, do you feel crazy? You feel like you're losing your bearings on like reality when you see stuff like this? Like, I've been talking about this for 20 years.
Yeah.
And now it's like, what's happening?
It makes me feel vindicated. Actually, it makes me feel okay. I
Careful
think
with that.
Careful with the vindication, right?
Yeah. I'm
That's
like, okay.
what's
I
on
think
my
I'm on the right
spirit
path.
lately. It's
Well,
like
no,
a
wait.
warning.
He just said he thinks he's so. Yeah, no, it's like I just have this stirring feeling. David's been saying for a while. It's like you do feel vindicated, but I go, oh, why?
Yeah.
Like what next now?
Well, because I recognize that
Exactly.
vindication is a little bit of, there's a mixture of pride in there,
Mhm.
and that's a dangerous substance to get
Right.
wrapped up with. And it's like,
But hey, man, you deserve it. Like you've been.
Well, no, I don't feel vindicated. It's like, oh, I'm right. No, it's more like, okay.
no, I know.
I feel better that now maybe that means that the next thing that I'm on the right path is what I think. Okay, so I was thinking around the right path, so I feel less unsure about some of the other things that I believe are coming down the road.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it also confirms that maybe I was hearing from the Holy Spirit.
yeah,
Mm.
then that's where I've been, and so I've been making sure like gratitude is my main position, because it's like, okay, not only have I been sniffing on the right thing, and that's because God is revealing these things. I imagine that's what's going on. It seems more and more obvious every day, but that I've been blessed to be put in a position during these times in our story to say these things, and stand in opposition to this big sort of antichrist system that I think has been coming to fruition for a really long time, and now I think our generation is going to be subjected to maybe the sort of the end game of it all. And so that's like that, and to some people that sounds blackpilling. When you look at this long enough, there's no fear associated with it. It's God's in control, and Satan, the adversary, this spirit of the enemy, is trying to. It's a battle for souls, and so at least rejoice in the idea that you're in alignment with Christ, and then for me, it's just nothing but gratitude. Like, look what I get to do during these times, and so whether or not they're co-opting a thing, trying to steer it, trying to be the maybe the talking heads that are associated with it when people start orienting themselves towards like, well, what are the Nephilim? What about Jesus? There's a lot of fake Jesuses that are going to get propped up in this time, and it's going to be really difficult. But look where you get to stand. And that doesn't mean like rest on your laurels and get overly confident. I think the deception is going to be great, but so far, the greatest deception that's ever happened hasn't really got you. That's remarkable. That's
so far.
So many layers of gratitude are involved with it. But and we got to bring it in for a landing because we have another show in about 10 minutes. So thank you for coming on. And it's a really exciting topic. I'm glad that I didn't know we were going to talk with you about this whole Epstein thing and everything. So really fantastic. A great episode.
Okay. One more thing. One last quick thing. If anyone doubts that we're habituating to the Epstein stuff being okay, ask anyone, do you think that any of these people in the files are going to be prosecuted? They're going to say no. You can say, why? That's just how things are.
Nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
You're not outraged. You're habituated.
That's the meme.
Yeah.
The meme is nothing ever happens.
We need a shirt that says, I ain't no her bitch.
I ain't no her bitch.
You waited. You're right.
All right.
Damn. Yeah.
We can wrap it up.
Where can people find you, Ed?
faithbyreason.net. Tons of information there. Some of it behind a paywall. You can become a member there. You can also sign up for the spiritual warfare course. Highly recommended. It's starting in April. It's a year-long course. You're going to get a ton of information. I've been sending out preparatory emails. The next one is going out next week. It's really going to highlight all the tools you're going to be getting. You're going to walk away from this with an arsenal. John calls it like in a video game sense. You're going to get a big inventory of stuff you can use. And so I'm going to highlight all the different tools you're going to get. And most of it is proprietary. You're not going to get it anyplace else. It's stuff that we've created there. And you're going to get most of it free or some really expensive stuff at a significant discount. So it's going to be worth your while there. We'll talk, that'll be in the next email. But 12 months, and it's laid out like a combat course. First, you're going to learn defense. You're going to learn about yourself, your weaknesses. You're going to learn about the situation you're in. Then you're going to learn offense, those kind of tactics. Learn about your enemy. Then you're going to learn special situations and how to deal with like really tough situations. So you're going to go from being a soldier to being a Green Beret. And then the last section, you're going to learn how to help others, how to teach them what you know, and to create an army. So sign up for it. You can also go to my Patreon, patreon.com/faithbyreason. You can become a member there, get exclusive content when it first drops. Yeah, I just put up the latest in the Genesis series. Q&As there. I interact with folks there, and join up there. And you also get a discount on the spiritual warfare class as well.
This is an important thing, this spiritual warfare class at any point, but it looks like the timing couldn't be better, because I think we're really going to need it. This is going to be huge, even if you're already a conspiracy theorist.
And
you're
I hope
already
we got a year. Do we have a
That's
year?
it's funny. John and I were talking the other day. We're like, I hope we get through this class before everything comes to a crash.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. If everything comes to a crash or we lose the internet, we just got to figure out how to start doing stuff in person. So Ed will be on the West Coast, teaching this in person. We'll be trying desperately to help people in person. Is a great medium while it lasts, but who knows? Maybe not forever, right? All right.
And Ed, thank you again for coming on. Guys, until next time, don't forget to obey, submit, and comply. We'll see you later.